and we would prefer that he be referred to as such with that respect, Your Honor.
Government?
Yes, Your Honor. We would object to that as he is the accused in this matter, and it would be prejudicial for the panel members to not understand that he is the accused, and we must refer to him as that today's case, Your Honor.
Your Honor, as you're well aware, the government cannot be prejudiced. It's the defense and the accused in this case who has faces the prejudice, and there will be no confusion to the members of the panel who is on trial today.
So I'm going to overrule your objection. In the hypothetical world, the judge would give an instruction at the end in regards to something like that.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, we're ready to move to substantive motions, which have primarily been agreed upon already.
All right, we're all getting along here today.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have a couple of housekeeping matters before we go any further. So I think I had already said you're free to move about the well. Certainly ask for permission if you're going to approach any witnesses. I already talked about objections, provide a basis, and preferably with the military rule of evidence attached to it. The third thing I would just ask, and this isn't just for counsel, but this is also for the audience as well. I ask that we minimize distractions as much as possible. Obviously, folks need to focus on their case here, so to the extent that we're sighing, we're gasping, we're huffing, eliminate that from this courtroom. Cell phones, if they're not on vibrate, please put them on vibrate. Certainly, if you got to go outside, take the call, use the restroom, that's entirely appropriate. Just make sure that you do it quietly and without slamming doors as you come in and out. And then last but not least, we're live streaming today. So I know everybody will use, they will enunciate appropriately, and I will say hello to the moms and dads and the significant others here that are watching. So thank you for tuning in virtually. Those are the housekeeping items that I have. So back to the government, motions and limine.
Yes, Your Honor. Both parties have agreed to the following items. Excluding Exhibit 5 from today's court-martial, both parties have agreed to pre-admit Exhibit 1. That is a picture of the Swamp Fox Bar and Restaurant where the alleged incident took place. Both parties have agreed to include Exhibit 2, text messages between the accused and Lieutenant Kelly with redactions on that document that both parties have agreed to. In addition, both parties have agreed to include Exhibit 12, a picture of an aviator flight suit with constructive redactions of the black vest and the helmet. Additionally, both parties have agreed to no mention of any affair or adultery from Commander Knight. And lastly, both parties have agreed to no mention of the accused incident with their time on the lacrosse team or a stop with a police officer that occurred while they were in the Coast Guard Academy, unless that door is opened by defense.
Is that all from the government?
It is, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. I would just like to clarify one point that we did agree to regarding the alleged affair between Commander Knight and the FEMA reservist Blake Towers. The defense today does not intend to go into to elicit any hearsay testimony statements or to directly get out that Commander Knight is married and that he was having an affair. We do, however, intend to go into the nature of the relationship between Commander Knight and this individual, Blake Towers, and we intend to explore that through Commander Knight himself to illustrate the nature of their relationship and that he had a close personal relationship with her.
Government, is that your understanding in your pre-trial discussions?
Yes, that is my understanding, as long as the discussion of the close personal relationship doesn't mention affairs or adultery.
Okay, close relationship does not equal affairs or adultery.
We don't intend to elicit the words affairs or adultery. We just intend to go to the close personal relationship and the fact that he had feelings for this individual.
Okay. Anything else from the defense?
None regarding what the government has stated. And Your Honor, our motion was related to the lacrosse and the police encounter. I'm going to let my co-counsel take that away.
Yes, Your Honor. As the opposing counsel mentioned previously, our motion was regarding excluding testimony related to an altercation that occurred while Lieutenant Whitaker was at the Coast Guard Academy lacrosse team and a stop by a police officer by Lieutenant Whitaker. Since the parties have agreed not to mention this testimony, we just wanted to withdraw
appreciate that. And so, is this definitive, or again, if somebody opens the door, then we're going to have further discussion on these two items, the cross incident as well as the police stop? Is that fair?
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything else?
That is it from the defense, Your Honor. The defense ready to move to opening statements.
All right, so looking at the list of exhibits, just so that I'm clear, my understanding is that 7, 8, and 11 are already in.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You are saying one is agreed to, that is pre-admitted. Can you tell me about 2 and 12 in terms of redactions? You already have agreed to the redactions between the parties?
Yes, Your Honor, and I can approach with a copy of the redacted exhibit. May I approach?
So defense, I'm looking at Exhibit 2 with 2 redactions, specifically the fourth to last text and the last text are redacted. Is that what you have?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay. And then let's go through with number 12, and the redactions for the photo of the flight suit.
Brief court's indulgence.
Your Honor, may I search the copy of it as well?
You may just show it to counsel so that I know everybody was looking at the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think we used the word constructive redactions.
Yes, as
What's constructive about what's redacted constructively here?
the black vest and the helmet that is depicted.
And defense counsel, you concur?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I think I'm out of questions. Do the parties have anything else? Go ahead and retrieve these 2 exhibits.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The government is ready to proceed with opening statements when the court is ready.
Board members, I advise you that opening statements are not evidence. Rather, they are what counsel expect the evidence will show in the case. Government, you may proceed with your opening statement.
Commissioner Bothwell. May I please?
discipline inside a command post and ordered again, go to bed. And the accused, well, his choice of response was to invite his superior officer to bed with him. He acted disrespectfully. And once it was clear of the accused's intent to disobey not one, but two orders, Commander Knight decided to de-escalate the situation by taking the accused's beer. And in that process, the accused knocked Commander Knight off her balance, over a bar stool, and to the ground, causing a sprained knee. Disorder, disobedience, and disrespect. Today, we hold the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the charges in today's case. And the evidence will show actions, language, conduct, all by the accused, well below the high standards of a United States Coast Guard officer inside a command post during a major hurricane relief effort. The evidence will show the accused's disorder, disobedience, and disrespect. And so for the good order and discipline of our armed forces, at the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Anthony Stokes, will come up here and ask that you find a verdict, but not just any verdict. The only verdict that the evidence supports, and the only verdict that justice demands. Find Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker guilty. Thank you.
Does the defense have an opening statement?
We do, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
We agree that order, obedience, and respect are important principles for our members of the Coast Guard to follow. We agree that those principles were violated on August 13th, 2024. But you'll learn it wasn't by Lieutenant Whitaker. Because what the government left out of their opening statement is that the bartender that evening saw the expression on Commander Knight's face, and from it knew that a fight was about to break out. Because that night, Commander Knight went looking for a fight. As the prosecution mentioned, they bear the burden to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But it will become clear to you today that they will fail to meet this burden for 3 reasons. First, because Lieutenant Whitaker did not know Commander Knight was his superior commissioned officer. Second, because Commander Knight abandoned her rank both by targeting Lieutenant Whitaker for personal reasons and by drinking before her shift. And third, because after being targeted for personal reasons, all Lieutenant Whitaker did was act in self-defense. Good afternoon, members of the panel. My name is Rachel Rubin, and I, along with my co-counsel, Jack Biddle, have the privilege of representing the Coast Guard's own Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker. Please stand, Lieutenant Whitaker. You're going to learn a lot about Lieutenant Whitaker throughout today's trial. You'll learn that he intends to become an aviator, that he intends to have a long, robust career of service within the Coast Guard, and also that he's a Dallas Cowboys fan. Please sit down, Lieutenant Whitaker. Now, that might not seem like a fact that matters in this trial today, but as you'll learn, unfortunately, it does. Let's take a step back to that night, August 13th, 2024. Lieutenant Whitaker had just gotten off a shift assessing damage and rescuing civilians around Charleston after a hurricane had blown through. He went down to the hotel bar to grab a drink, grab some food, and watch his favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, play. It was an August night. The AC was broken. It was hot. Fans were packed in like sardines in this crowded bar around a single TV, passionately screaming for and cheering on their teams. Because it was a close game. It was a close game in the second half until the Panthers missed a field goal, ending any chance they had of a victory and securing one for the Dallas Cowboys. You'll hear that Cowboys fans were thrilled and Panthers fans less so. But that's sports. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Nothing was out of the ordinary until a Panthers fan dressed in a Carolina Panthers polo, khaki shorts, and flip-flops came up behind Lieutenant Whitaker, hit him on the shoulder, and said, "Okay, Cowboy, time for you to go to bed." When Lieutenant Whitaker told this Panthers fan to mind her own business, you'll hear that Panthers fan grabbed Lieutenant Whitaker out of his seat and took a swing at him. A swing that would have hit the lieutenant in his face if he hadn't blocked it. But as you'll hear today, luckily he did block it. And that force caused Commander Knight to fall backwards over the bar stool and end up on the ground. That's when Lieutenant Whitaker apologized, paid his bar tab, and left the bar. You'll see the lieutenant did not know who that Panthers fan was that night. Because as you'll see, that Panthers fan did not introduce herself by name, nor by rank, not at all. But as we sit here in this court-martial today, we know that Panthers fan was Lieutenant Commander Logan Marshall Knight. And we will learn that Commander Knight targeted Lieutenant Whitaker for two personal reasons: a preseason football game, and for her feelings for the person who Lieutenant Whitaker was flirting with that evening. Let's start with why Commander Knight would start a fight over a preseason football game. She's going to tell you herself today. As you'll hear, she was drinking in the bar that evening. She was drinking shots of Fireball whiskey. She'll tell you that she was sent a shot every single time the Panthers scored. And as we'll hear, the Panthers scored 5 times that evening. And it was at the end of the game, when the Panthers were losing, when drinks were flowing in that same 1-hour span, that Commander Knight looked over towards the bar and saw a Cowboys fan flirting with someone she knows, someone she cares for, someone named Blake Towers. Commander Knight's going to tell you about her relationship with Blake Towers today. You'll hear that she admires her immensely, that they spent late nights at the hotel with one another, and that they shared intense moments. But that night, you'll see Blake Towers was spending a late night at the hotel with Lieutenant Whitaker instead. And it was only after seeing them together that Commander Knight rose out of her seat and crossed the bar over towards them. As the prosecution mentioned, they bear the burden to prove to you each and every element charge that they've brought against Lieutenant Whitaker beyond a reasonable doubt. They must prove that Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker knew Commander Knight was his superior commissioned officer. You'll see no evidence of this today. Next, they must prove that Lieutenant Whitaker did anything other than defend himself in the bar that evening. Yet every witness you will hear from today will tell you that it was Commander Knight who made the first move, and that all the lieutenant did was block the blow. Next, they must prove to you that Lieutenant Whitaker disobeyed a direct order. But as you'll see today, members of the panel, Commander Knight was not acting as an officer in that moment, and Commander Knight never gave a legitimate order to Lieutenant Whitaker. And lastly, they must prove to you that Lieutenant Whitaker engaged in conduct that would prejudice the good order and nature of the armed forces. But the only person you'll see who did that evening was Commander Knight when she abandoned her rank. We ask you to hold the prosecution to their burden today, to hold commanders of the armed forces to the standards that have been set for them. And that's why at the conclusion of today's trial, my co-counsel, Jack Biddle, will come before you, and he will walk you through the evidence and the testimony that you'll see today. He will walk you through Lieutenant Whitaker's confusion and through Commander Knight's targeted anger. After which, Mr. Biddle will ask you to find the only conclusion that's consistent with the facts, with the law, and with justice. Find Lieutenant Whitaker not guilty.
Trial counsel, go ahead and call your first witness, please.
Government calls Lieutenant Commander Logan Knight to stand. Commander Knight, can you please introduce yourself to the panel members?
Yes, my name is Logan Knight.
And what do you do?
I am a lieutenant's Coast Guard.
And how long have you been in the United States Coast Guard?
I'd say roughly about 20 years or so.
In that 20 years, what's your primary role?
I'm an aviator.
And on August 13th, 2024, I want you to take me back to that day. Where were you assigned?
I was assigned right here in Charleston, South Carolina. I was a part of the rescue team member efforts relief program, and Hurricane Benny had just rolled in, so I was helping out.
And as a part of that program, where was it stationed at?
It was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, and more specifically in the Swamp Fox Hotel and Restaurant.
And what was the Swamp Fox Bar and Restaurant being used as?
A command center, like a unified command post. This is where we would have meetings, we were working out of, and we would meet there.
And about how long were you at this command post?
So from the time of the incident, I was there for about a week or so.
Now, I want to talk about that week. During that week, how would officers identify themselves in and out of the hotel?
So we would be wearing our uniforms. We were working 12-hour shifts, so I was always in uniform with my rank showing.
So let's go back to that night of August 13th. What were you doing?
So that night, I had went down to the Swamp Fox Hotel, the restaurant in there, and I had wanted to get dinner.
And when you got there, what was the environment like?
This bar, restaurant, it was loud. You had football game on, so people were screaming, and they were rowdy. People were sweating. It was chaotic. A lot going on for sure.
Your Honor, permission to set up the well with a demonstrative of what she's just described.
You may.
Your Honor, permission to reposition myself if I can't see it from my seat.
You may.
Now, can you describe to the panel where you were sitting in this bar?
So I was sitting at one of those white tables right there, but I was about 20 feet from the bar.
And, Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has just pointed to the bottom right corner of the image and stated that she was 20 feet behind.
The record shall so reflect.
Now, when you were at this bar, you said that the environment was very busy. Can you describe what, if anything, stood out to you on that night?
So I noticed Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker. He was also screaming at the TV, being very loud and causing a disturbance.
To say what they said, how they said it, those things would be proper for this witness to testify to. However, to just merely say that this is an order is improper.
Yes, Your Honor. This is a superior officer who has testified to having 20 years of experience experience in the United States Coast Guard. In addition, as a superior officer, one of their responsibilities is giving orders regularly. And so she should be able to speak on what it means when she gives an order.
I'm going to overrule the objection under MRE 701 as an opinion testimony by a lay witness. Witness does have 20-plus years in the Coast Guard, and can intelligently speak as to what the witness
Your Honor, a brief moment for an impeachment, for a recross.
Is it specific to the redirect examination?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Commander Knight, you remember giving prior sworn testimony in this case?
I do.
You remember that you were under oath at that point in time?
I was.
The same oath you're under here today?
Yes.
To tell the truth
Yes.
and the whole truth.
That's correct.
Directing court and counsel to page 2, lines 36 through 41 of the witness's prior sworn testimony. Your Honor, may I proceed, or would you like a moment to return to that page?
No, go ahead.
What did you order on the night? Ask. I knew I had to shift bright and early, so I did not order any
Objection,
alcohol
Your
myself.
Honor. As to improper impeachment, may I be heard? This is what the witness stated earlier, that when asked about strict regulations, she did concede to that, Your Honor, and this witness is not impeaching anything contrary to what this witness has already stated.
On redirect examination, Your Honor, this witness was asked whether she knows of any regulation which prohibits her from drinking. Your Honor, this and said, no, I'm not aware of any limitation that prohibits me from drinking. This is in direct contravention of her testimony that she is aware of a regulation which strictly limits, which necessarily means that it stops her from drinking more alcohol than a certain specified amount, and is a direct contravention.
Response, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
The regulation that she is referring to does not specify when or how often commanders may have alcohol. And the question that I asked was generally, are there any specific times where you cannot have alcohol? And not the question that the opposing counsel is attempting to elicit, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection. Counsel, do you have anything else?
No, Your Honor, that was all.
Lieutenant Commander Knight, you may be excused. Thank you. Trial counsel, call your next witness, please.
The government now calls Ms. Chris Starr to the stand. Good afternoon. Could you introduce yourself to the members?
Of course. My name is Chris Starr. It's spelled a little weird. It's K-R-I-S-S-T-A-R-R.
And Ms. Starr, what do you do for a living?
I am currently a full-time MBA student at the Citadel here in Charleston, but I also bartend on the weekends, and then sometimes I pick up some shifts on the weekdays when I have some free time.
And where do you bartend at?
There is a bar called the a bar and restaurant called the Swamp Fox within the Francis Marion Hotel, and that's where I'm a bartender.
And how long have you been bartending at the Swamp Fox?
It'll be just over 2 years now.
And is that the only bartending job you've had?
No, I wish it was. I've actually been bartending since the day I turned 21, so over 7 years now.
And were you on shift on August 13th at the Swamp Fox Bar and Restaurant?
Yes, I was actually the only one, the only bartender, on shift that day.
And could you tell the members if there was anything that stood out to you during this shift?
Of course, the whole shift kind of stands out in my mind because it was an absolute madhouse. There was a game on, people were screaming at the TV. Everybody, well, not everybody, but most people were drinking at the bar, and so it was just a lot going on. It was really, really hot because the AC was out. And then at the end of the night, there was actually a fight, and so that's not something that usually happens at the Swamp Fox.
And you just mentioned a fight. Do you know who that fight was between?
Yeah, so at the time I didn't know either of the people. I just saw somebody in Panthers gear and Cowboys gear, but now I know that it was between Lieutenant Whitaker and Commander Knight.
And do you see Lieutenant Whitaker in the courtroom here today?
Yes, he is in the corner.
And could you identify him by a piece of clothing?
Of course, he has on a green tie.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has identified the accused in this matter, Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker.
So noted.
Now, you mentioned you were the only bartender. Could you tell the members what were some of the things you were doing during your shift?
Yeah, so I was behind the bar. So I was taking everybody's orders at the bar, whether it be food just the normal bartender stuff.
And did you serve Lieutenant Whitaker on August 13th?
I did. Lieutenant Whitaker was actually sitting at the bar, so they were pretty much directly in front of me with a whole group of people, and I served them their entire tab.
Your Honor, retrieving what has been previously marked as Exhibit 3, showing opposing counsel. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Approaching the witness with Exhibit 3 and handing them a copy. Ms. Starr, what did I just hand you?
This is the receipt that I just mentioned. I printed out at the Swamp Fox for Lieutenant Whitaker. It was made on August 13th.
And what time on August 13th did you print this receipt out?
It was at 9:43.
And is printing receipts out something you normally do as a bartender?
Yeah, that's like the first part of the job. As a bartender, we have to make sure we print out a receipt, get everybody's signature, make sure everybody checks out. That was really important.
And is Exhibit 3 a fair and accurate depiction of Lieutenant Whitaker's receipt from August 13th?
Yeah, it looks exactly how it looked when I printed it out.
Your Honor, at this time, the government would like to have Exhibit 3 entered into evidence.
Any objections, Spence?
Yes, Your Honor, we object on hearsay grounds.
More specifically?
Specifically, Your Honor, the business records exception under 8036 requires that the business record be testified to by the custodian of the records. We have no testimony that this bartender controls the receipt from the moment that it was entered into evidence, from the moment that she took the receipt down that night until the moment it has been entered into evidence today. We do not know what has happened since that time, and since we cannot establish who the custodian of the records is, this document is still hearsay.
Okay. Government?
Yes, Your Honor. This witness has testified that printing receipts is a part of their normal duties as a bartender. Additionally, this receipt lists both the time and date that it was created, and to add a receipt or add items to a receipt would require a new date and time. And this bartender has already testified that they printed this exact receipt out on this date and this time and would thus qualify as a business record.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection under 8036. Exhibit 3 is in evidence.
And Your Honor, may I publish Exhibit 3 through the form of a demonstrative?
You may. Defense counsel, you may move about as well.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Starr, could you read for the members the items listed on this receipt?
Of course. So there's 5 Palmetto IPAs, those are beers. There's 3 Bud Light bottles, 2 Tito's vodka, 6 Fireball shots, 1 Southern Fried Chicken sandwich, 1 Hush Puppies, and 2 Patron.
And was this everything that Lieutenant Whitaker ordered through you on August 13th?
Yes, this is everything that he ordered and then everything that I brought over to him.
Now, you listed some drinks on this receipt. Did you see Lieutenant Whitaker consuming alcohol?
Yeah, so I know Lieutenant Whitaker definitely had the Palmetto IPAs because I remember that he asked me about them and we were out of stock of all of our other types of beers on tap. But I didn't actually see him drink the rest of it. I do know that their group was taking shots though.
Now, you've mentioned the environment of the Swamp Fox that night. Could you describe Lieutenant Whitaker's behavior for the members on August 13th?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like the whole bar was loud and people were screaming at the TV, but it just seemed like Lieutenant Whitaker was the leader of the group. There was a group kind of huddled around the bar. He just seemed to be screaming as well, banging on the bar. And then at one point I saw him spill a drink on another patron at the bar. I actually at one point went over there and I asked him to try to get them to quiet down because he did look like the leader of the group.
And having seen him consume alcohol and seeing this behavior, what were your impressions of the two relating to each other?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me that he had plenty to drink, quite frankly. At a certain point, I just stopped serving them. It was just, again, very, very belligerent behavior, if you will.
And you described Lieutenant Whitaker's behavior. What did you do as a response to that?
Yeah, so I mentioned I walked over and I actually asked him to help quiet down everybody because it was, again, super loud and kind of right in my face. And as a bartender, that's just a bit overwhelming. And so I actually went over there, I asked him to help quiet down his friends, something rude, like, you do it. And so that was the point that I walked away and I stopped serving them because it was just too rowdy and a bit too much for me at that time being the only bartender.
Brief moment to confer with co-counsel.
Go ahead.
Now, Ms. Starr, you've talked about a fight that occurred that night. Could you describe for the members what you saw in the moments leading up to it?
Yeah, so I was all around the bar, moving back and forth, and so I didn't see absolutely everything. But it kind of caught my attention when a bar stool fell, so I heard them kind of talking. But when the bar stool fell and it made a really loud noise in the swamp box, that's when I really looked over and looked at everything. So at the beginning, I heard Commander Knight say something like, "You're embarrassing everyone, it's time to go to bed." Something along those lines, "You've had enough fun," something like that. And something like that, it was his business. And so after he said that, I saw Lieutenant Whitaker throw an arm up eventually. And then at that point, I saw Commander Knight fall to the floor and he was laid out on the floor. Or she was laid out on the floor, apologies.
And after seeing Commander Knight get knocked to the floor by Lieutenant Whitaker, what, if anything, happened next?
Yeah, so I actually saw another person who I now know as Lieutenant Brett Kelly, and they immediately they kind of like grabbed Lieutenant Whitaker away from the situation, and then they pulled them back toward the bar. So at this point, they were right in front of me, and Brett Kelly said to Lieutenant Whitaker something along the lines of, "You need to
Objection,
stand
Your
down."
Honor, hearsay.
Yes, Your Honor. This statement would fall or qualify as an excited utterance. Lieutenant Kelly is a close friend of the accused and had just witnessed a startling event, that being the accused get into an altercation with another person on August 13th. This statement was relating to that altercation and was made immediately after Lieutenant Kelly had pulled the accused back from this altercation.
So you said that Kelly was startled. Let's see if we could draw out from the witness why the witness thinks that Kelly was startled. So go ahead and try to lay a little bit more foundation, please.
Understood. Ms. Starr, when the accused and Commander Knight were facing each other, what, if anything, did you notice about the surrounding people?
Everybody was crowding around them. Again, it looked like something was about to go down, and so people were just kind of like crowding around them, riled up a little bit.
And did you see Lieutenant Kelly in amongst this crowd watching the altercation?
Oh, yes. Actually, Lieutenant Kelly was a part of the group that I've been saying. So he was a part of the group that was surrounding the conversation. The altercation as well.
And what happened after you saw Lieutenant Kelly pull Lieutenant Whitaker back from this altercation?
Yeah, so he pulled him back immediately after the argument or altercation and said, "You need to stand down."
Your Honor, again, I raise my objection to hearsay.
No, I'll allow it. Go ahead. Witness can continue.
Excuse me. Lieutenant Kelly said, "You need to stand down. You need to go apologize," and something about not wanting to get kicked out for drinking. And so at that point, Lieutenant Whitaker did go over there and apologize from what I saw.
No further questions from this witness at this time. Do you want me to move that down?
Government, why don't you go ahead and remove that exhibit? Defense counsel, do you have any thoughts on this witness?
I do. Brief moment to confer with co-counsel.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ms. Starr, you were the only working bartender at the Swamp Box on August 13th?
Yes, I was.
Only 2 other members of staff could make it into work that day?
Yes, I believe there was a waiter and a cook.
The bar was packed that night.
It was.
It was a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah, it was.
Part because there were a lot of football fans crowding in front of the TV.
Yeah, and the Swamp Box is not usually a sports bar.
And many of those football fans were yelling.
They were.
They were cheering on their team.
Yeah, they were.
They were banging on the bar,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and they were drinking.
Yes.
You'd agree that Lieutenant Whitaker's behavior before the altercation with Commander Knight was nothing out of the normal from how everyone else was behaving at the bar then?
For the most part, I think that he was the leader of the group, but yes, it was nothing out of the normal for people who were drinking a lot.
So let's talk about how much you course, the witness was already in evidence on Exhibit 3.
Go ahead, please show it to the government first.
The government. I see you already have a copy.
Okay, I'll take this.
Miss Starr, how many IPAs are on this tab?
There's 5 of them.
You can't tell the members of the panel how many of those 5 IPAs you saw Lieutenant Whitaker drinking.
No, I can't, but I remember that he personally requested the IPAs, so.
So you can't give a specific number of those 5 that he drank.
No, I can't.
You also can't tell the members of this panel that you saw Lieutenant Whitaker take any shots that night.
No, I didn't see him personally take any shots. I just saw the group taking shots, as I mentioned.
Thank you, Ms. Starr. You can set that exhibit aside now. Now, I'd like to talk more about Lieutenant Whitaker's behavior that night. No one complained to you about Lieutenant Whitaker's behavior?
No, they didn't.
Not even the person you saw Lieutenant Whitaker spill a drink on?
No, she didn't.
In fact, after spilling the drink, those two got really friendly.
From what I saw,
You saw them hugging.
I did.
You saw them really close together.
Well, yeah, they were hugging. So.
You saw them getting cozy.
Yeah.
You described what they were doing as flirting.
Objection, Your Honor. Under Military Rule of Evidence 602, this would be speculative on the bartender's part.
I'm going to overrule your objection on the same basis from the last time we went down this road. Thank you.
You would describe this behavior as flirting.
Yeah, I thought so.
Then you turned away
Yes.
to serve someone else.
Yes.
And you heard a bar stool hit the ground.
I did. It was very loud.
And when you turned around to that bar stool, you saw an older man standing in front of Lieutenant Whitaker.
Yes, that was Commander. Well,
An older
woman.
lady. I apologize.
Yes, it was the older woman, Commander Knight.
The first time you had seen this woman was after the bar stool hit the ground.
Yes.
You did not know who she was at that point.
Oh no, I didn't know who any of them were. They were just customers.
And this person was wearing a Carolina Panthers polo shirt,
Yes, she was.
khaki shorts,
Yes.
flip-flops,
Yes.
not a military uniform.
No.
From your position behind the bar, you got a good look at Commander Knight's face.
To a degree, yes.
And just from the look on her face, you could tell there was going to be a fight.
Objection, Your Honor. We would also state that this is speculative under Military Rule of Evidence 602.
I'm going to overrule it. This witness has been a bartender for 2+ years and has been in these environments and is testifying as to what she believed. So.
Understood.
Asking the question again, Ms. Starr. Just from the look on Commander Knight's face, you could tell there was going to be a fight.
Yeah, after the stool fell and was really loud and the people started crowding around and then I looked at Commander Knight's face and it just looked like a bad situation. Yes.
Commander Knight's face looked like a bad situation.
I wouldn't say that. That's a little rude. It wasn't her face that looked like a bad situation.
The look on her
It was,
face.
yes, it was her face that, in the crowding and the stool on the ground that made me think it was a bad situation.
So let's talk about the fight that you saw on Commander Knight's face. You saw Commander Knight move towards Lieutenant Whitaker first.
Yes, like I said, I didn't see the beginning of the encounter, but yes.
But you did see Commander Knight move towards Lieutenant Whitaker first.
Yes.
You only saw Lieutenant Whitaker move after Commander Knight moved towards him.
Yes.
And you saw Lieutenant Whitaker throw an arm out towards Commander Knight.
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly say how you just threw your arm out, but yes, I saw him throw an arm out.
You didn't see Lieutenant Whitaker throw a punch at Commander Knight.
I didn't see him ball a fist and throw a punch, no.
After that, Commander Knight lost his balance, her balance,
I suppose so, yes.
and fell over the bar stool.
Yes, she did.
Now that we've talked about what happened at this fight, I want to talk a little about what Commander Knight said on the night in question. You testified that you heard Commander Knight say something about it being his business?
Something like that. It was something along the lines of, it's my business, or I didn't remember every single word of that.
You don't remember any of those words being his business to maintain discipline?
Once again, I didn't hear all of it. So what I caught was, it's not something about my business. I can't even necessarily say, she said it was my business. I just heard something about it being her business.
So you didn't catch the words maintain discipline?
No, I didn't.
You also didn't catch Commander Knight introduce herself?
No, I didn't catch that.
You didn't hear her say her name?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. This is irrelevant under Military Rule of Evidence 401 as to whether this witness heard Commander Knight make these statements. The facts of consequence that are relevant to today's court-martial is whether the accused heard these statements, and whether the bartender has is irrelevant.
So you're trying to prove knowledge, and under 401, that's an inclusionary rule, so I'm going to allow this question. Go ahead.
Ms. Starr, again, you didn't hear Commander Knight say her name.
No, I didn't catch that.
You didn't hear Commander Knight say her rank.
I didn't catch that.
You didn't hear Commander Knight identify herself at all.
No, I didn't catch that.
Permission to confer with co-counsel? Go ahead. Ms. Starr, after the fight was over and you saw Commander Knight on the ground, you claim you saw Lieutenant Whitaker do what looked like a salute towards Commander Knight.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me.
Ms. Starr, you'd agree that a salute and wiping sweat off of your brow could look similar?
I don't know.
Well, you know that both of those actions involve putting a hand to the forehead.
Sure, if you say so.
I would say so. Would you say so?
No, I can't say that positively.
You can't say that wiping away sweat would involve putting a hand to the forehead?
No, I don't know about that.
You
Wiping
don't-
away sweat would involve putting a hand to it? I think I'm
Wiping
just a
sweat
bit
off of your
confused.
forehead would involve putting your hand
To your forehead. Yeah, I would assume so.
Okay, Ms. Starr, you were kind of far away from Lieutenant Whitaker at this point,
Sure, yeah.
and his back was facing you.
Yes, Lieutenant Whitaker's back was towards the bar. I saw the front of Commander Knight.
And the bar was hot that night.
Yeah, it was hot in there.
The AC had been broken all night.
Yeah, because of the hurricane and the deliveries were delayed.
People were sweating.
From what I saw, yeah, there were a few people sweating.
One of those people specifically was Lieutenant Whitaker.
Yeah, from what I saw.
No further questions at this time.
Counsel, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Starr, you testified to seeing the accused throw an arm out towards the commander. Could you tell the members if you saw Commander Knight throw an arm out at the accused?
Oh, no, I never saw, when I said Commander Knight made the first move, I literally mean like walking up or kind of approaching Lieutenant Whitaker. I didn't actually see Commander Knight throw any arms out or throw any punches at all.
Thank you. No further questions for this witness. May they be excused?
Your Honor, you may have vote impeachment on recross.
Go ahead.
Ms. Starr, you just testified that the move you saw Commander Knight make was walking towards Lieutenant Whitaker.
No, not necessarily. I said approaching.
Approaching Lieutenant Whitaker. You also told us on cross-examination that the first time you saw Commander Knight was after the bar stool fell over,
Yes,
when they were right next to Lieutenant Whitaker.
they were in front of Lieutenant Whitaker.
Right in front of
approaching.
Lieutenant Whitaker.
Yes.
And it's your testimony today that the move that you saw Commander Knight make was approaching him slightly more.
Well, you asked me about the first move, and the first move was Commander Knight approaching Lieutenant Whitaker.
It is your testimony today that the first move that you saw Commander Knight make in response to an aggressive move was walking towards Lieutenant Whitaker?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Ms. Starr, you saw Commander Knight make a first aggressive move towards Lieutenant Whitaker.
No, I never said aggressive.
You
I
never said aggressive.
Move first. I saw him move first. I couldn't tell if he was throwing anything or trying to swing. I didn't see that.
You didn't see that.
No.
So you don't know what the move that you saw was.
No, that's what I just said.
Thank you.
Before we recess for the defense's case, Bailiff, do we have time to recess at this point?
Your Honor, while the time is being checked, the government would like to read off Stipulation 15B for the record.
Okay, go ahead.
The parties agree that the following facts are true and may be read to the panel at any time. Lieutenant Commander Logan Knight was, in fact, a superior commissioned officer to Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker, Lieutenant Junior Grade Britt Kelly, and Lieutenant Junior Grade Carson Francis on 13 August 2024. And with that, the government rests its case in chief.
Thank you, counsel. Any objection to that stipulation, or is that something that you previously agreed to?
We agreed to that stipulation, Your Honor. However, we have a motion to make at this point in time. We can make it after a brief recess if Your Honor prefers.
We'll hold until after the recess.
Yes, Your Honor.
So the government has 39 minutes remaining, and the defense has 36 minutes and 38 seconds remaining.
Okay. Ms. Starr, you may be excused.
Oh.
Okay, counsel, the time now is 15:20. We'll take a break until 15:27. This court is in recess.
viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the non-moving party, here the government, evidence has not been elicited sufficient to support a conviction that Lieutenant Whitaker did in fact know that Commander Knight was his superior commissioned officer. Assumptions or should have known is not sufficient to meet this and is not sufficient to meet this standard.
Counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. In viewing the light most favorable to the government of the United States in this court-martial, there has been sufficient evidence to show and allow the members to make a decision on whether or not the accused then knew that Commander Knight was in fact their superior commissioned officer. We've heard testimony that the close friend of the accused, Britt Kelly, told the accused to stand down, indicating that the Commander Knight was in fact a superior officer, saying that this altercation could risk them getting kicked out of the Coast Guard, that being fighting between two officers, and because of that evidence, that is sufficient to move forward to the members of the panel for their determination.
Okay, thank you both. You may be seated. Well, there certainly is a distinction between direct and circumstantial evidence. The government has certainly admitted enough evidence to defeat your 917 motion at this time. So your motion is denied. Defense, do you have a case?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. At this time, the defense calls Lieutenant Britt Kelly to the stand.
All right.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the panel?
Hello, my name is Lieutenant Junior Grade Britt Kelly.
Are you familiar with Lieutenant Whitaker?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
How do you know him?
We were the same year at the Coast Guard Academy together, and we were roommates for 3 years, and we've remained close ever since.
Let's talk about why you've been called into this court-martial today. Where were you on August 13th, 2024?
I was with Lieutenant Whitaker at the Swamp Fox Restaurant and Bar after our shift at the Unified Command for Hurricane Benny relief.
What were you doing at the Swamp Fox Restaurant and Bar?
Myself and Lieutenant Whitaker had planned to watch the Dallas Cowboys versus the Panthers preseason football game.
Which team were you cheering for?
I was cheering for the Cowboys.
give a definition of speech, right?
Yes, sir.
And sworn and truthful,
Yes, sir, absolutely.
swore to not lie,
Yes, sir.
and you gave it out, right?
Yes, sir.
Also, on redirect examination, you stated that the restaurant was not the ground zero hurricane relief. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I stated that.
And that's your testimony today.
Yes, yes, sir.
Approaching the witness with the preliminary hearing transcript. Showing to the building council. Page 4, lines 17 through 21. Please read silently as I read aloud. I'll repeat the numbers for you. It's page 4, lines 17 through 21. It states, "You mean before Commander Knight came over to us? Kind of. The restaurant's kind of fancy, like normally, I think. It's not your typical bar scene where people would be drinking beer and watching football, but it was basically ground zero of hurricane relief efforts."
Objection. To improper impeachment. The witness was asked if it in fact was ground zero. They said it was not ground zero, it was a definitive matter that had been asked for clarification. Redirected to provide the witness the opportunity to explain their statements so that it could align with their prior consistent testimony. To allow this impeachment to go through would be wholly improper and with no direct conflict.
There was in fact a direct contradiction on redirect examination. She attempted to clarify and ask the witness to state that the restaurant was not being used, in fact, the ground as the ground zero location for our community. So I'll restate that last sentence. It states, "But it was basically ground zero for hurricane relief." Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Step down now.
Your grades telling remarks, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Lieutenant Henry.
Yeah. Sir, can you please introduce yourself and notice your name?
Yes, sir. My name is Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitaker, United States Coast Guard.
How long have you been?
Since about 2022, which is when I graduated.
Lieutenant Whitaker, you have been accused of attacking the security officer. Is that true?
No, sir. Absolutely not. The night of August 13th, it was Commander Knight who attacked me first. It's not to mention I had no idea who this person was at this time, who I did find out later was Commander.
Showing opposing counsel what is already known as 2, correction for witness.
Okay.
What did I just hand you, Lieutenant?
This is a copy of my text messages with Lieutenant Kelly from earlier that night on August 13th.
Can you please read the message below that begins with "no"?
Yes, sir. That reads, "You know all the higher-ups will be there with their microscopes on this."
Who sent that, please?
That was Lieutenant Kelly.
What did you think Lieutenant Kelly meant?
Well, he meant that there might be some higher-ups there at the bar that night, but I certainly didn't take it to mean that she was saying that all of our higher-ups were going to be in the bar that night, or that the bar was solely going to be filled with our superior officers.
You can set that aside now. Now I'd like to talk about what happened at the swamp box. What time did you arrive?
We've been around 18.
Did you go alone?
No, sir, I went down with Lieutenant.
What was the state of the bar when you arrived?
It was packed and it was hot. The AC was out that night, if you can imagine, August, Charleston, the state of that bar. And given the football game that was going on that night, it was crowds of fans who were watching.
Who, if anyone, met you?
Aside from Lieutenant Kelly, who I went down with, there were other officers of the Coast Guard that had come in and out that night to watch the game with us and cheer on the teams.
Showing opposing counsel, what's argument 73? Commissioner Burke. Lieutenant Whitaker, what did I just hand you?
This is a copy from my bar tab on August 13th.
What on this bar tab did you personally drink?
Of the drinks, I would have had some of these IPAs that are listed here.
What of the food?
I believe all of the food, specifically the chicken sandwich and the hush puppies, are what I ordered.
Did you have any of the shots listed on this tab?
No, sir, that would have been the other officers that were with us that night who were ordering on.
Lieutenant Whitaker, were you drunk on August 13th?
No, sir.
Asking the accused if they were drunk, the legal conclusion that is meant to the members of the family space.
Your Honor, it's within this witness's rationally-based perception to describe how they were behaving and feeling on the night of question.
I'll allow them 7 minutes.
Were you drunk on August 13th?
No, sir.
We can set that aside. Let's get back to the swamp box itself. How long were you at the swamp box?
That would have been a few hours for the duration.
What were you doing while you were there?
Just walking, having a good time with Lieutenant Kelly as well as the other officers. We were cheering on our team, Dallas Cowboys, high-fiving.
Who, if anyone, did you talk to outside of your crowd?
Aside from Lieutenant Kelly and the other officers, I was also talking to Blake Towers, who was sitting next to me that night, and who I had met.
Who's Blake Towers?
Blake Towers, I had come to learn, was a FEMA reservist, and if I can be frank, sir, they were being very flirty with me that night. They were getting super close to me that night, sitting very close, that sort of thing.
Now let's talk a little bit about Commander Wright. Did you know who Commander Wright was before August 13th?
No, sir, I never met her before.
Do you recall a specific time you saw her in the lobby of the Frank's Mary Hotel?
No, sir, I can't remember a specific time or place.
Do you recall a specific time that you saw her at any point over that weekend until August 13th?
No, sir, I can't remember a specific time.
You were here when Commander Wright testified. What did she say she would have been wearing in the lobby of the hotel?
I recall her saying earlier today that she would have been wearing her flight suit.
Showing opposing counsel exactly what it's going to be. Oh. Permission to vote. Okay. You scared right?
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Whitaker, what kinds of people wear these places?
It might be aviators in the Coast Guard, but it might also be members of those aviators' flight crews. It might also be enlisted members in other branches.
Do only superior officers wear flight suits?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
How can you tell the kind of a person wearing these flights?
There will be a patch on this picture here with the mannequin. That patch will be on the left shoulder of the inner.
I am pointing to a patch above the American flag on the left shoulder. Lieutenant Whitaker, is this the patch that you were describing?
Yes, sir, that would be where it is.
Taking down into the 12. Now, Lieutenant Whitaker, let's get to the altercation itself. What time was it when Commander Knight first approached you?
That would have been around 21:30.
What did he do first? She did first.
The first thing I remember about the interaction with Commander Knight was that I felt a tap or a hit.
What did you think of this hit?
I thought it was just an accident, given how crowded the bar was. I thought someone had bumped into me.
Did anything make you change your mind?
Yes, sir. When she yelled in my ear, "Okay, cowboy, time to go."
When she yelled in your ear, what happened next?
Well, when I spun around to see who was yelling in my ear, that's when I saw what looked to be an annoyed Carolina Panthers fan.
Why did you think this was a Carolina Panthers fan?
Well, for one, what she was wearing a Carolina Panthers polo, khaki shorts, flip flops, and as I mentioned, the first word that she spoke to me was cowboy. Given there were Cowboys Panthers fan, who just wanted to do it.
Lieutenant Whitaker, were you the only member of the Coast Guard in the swap box that night?
No, sir.
Were you the only Cowboys fan?
No, sir.
Were you the only Cowboys fan cheering on your team that night?
No, sir.
Did Commander Knight approach any of the other Cowboys fans?
No, sir. Not that I saw.
Did Commander Knight approach any of the other members of the Coast Guard?
No, sir. Not that I saw.
Did you think, okay, Cowboy, time for you to go to bed was in order? What did you hear Commander Knight say?
At that point, I had heard them say, okay, cowboy.
What did you think when she said those words?
I just thought it was an annoyed Carolina Panthers fan that was trying to start a fight with me. I certainly didn't think it was an order. In all my time as a member of the Coast Guard, I never had an order that started with cowboy. Of course, this isn't the man that I had no idea who was Jones.
What happened after she used those words?
She actually took a swing at me. Would have pretty much hit me in the face if I hadn't raised my arm up to sort of block it.
Lieutenant Whitaker, did you try to punch Commander Knight?
No, sir, of course not.
Did you push Commander Knight?
Sir.
You heard. Start that. Lieutenant Whitaker, when did you learn Commander Knight was a superior officer?
I didn't learn who Commander Knight was until the next day.
No further questions at this time. I just ask you to please.
Trial counsel in the process of this witness?
Yes or no?
Lieutenant Whitaker, the day of the fight, you spoke with your friend Lieutenant Kelly Dog in the swamp, right?
I did it, sir. We tested.
And the swamp box was within the Francis Marion Hotel.
Yes, sir.
And the Francis Marion Hotel is the command post of the United States Postal Service.
Yes, sir.
Retrieving what has been committed into evidence as Exhibit 2. Now published with that. Lieutenant Whitaker, in these text messages, Lieutenant Kelly told you, you know, all the high reps will be there with the microscopes on us, right?
She did text that.
And you thought that meant exactly what it said.
No, sir, not literally. What is it?
So you thought when she meant the high reps, that's exactly what it meant. They would be at the swamp.
Not all of our higher ups.
My question was, you knew that Lieutenant Kelly saying the higher ups would be at the swamp box meant exactly what he said.
Sir, no, I didn't take this to mean that all of our higher ups would be there at the bar. There would be at least one.
So, Lieutenant Whitaker, you knew that higher ups would be at the swamp box on the 13th.
That's what Lieutenant.
But you know.
Yes, sir.
And the swamp box is the only place to eat in the Francis Marion Hotel.
Pretty much, yes, sir.
You mentioned that everyone goes to eat there every night.
Pretty much, yes. Everyone that had been to that hotel, including Coast Guard officers, first responders, and civilians.
And after Lieutenant Kelly told you that higher ups would be at the swamp box, you responded by saying, they're one of them to command me, bro. I'll put them in their place real quick after a few minutes. Like that?
I did text that, yes, sir.
Now, you plan on drinking that?
Yes, sir.
And you had 3 beers.
Yes, sir.
But it could have been, right?
It could have been 4 drinks.
Yes.
Yes, sir, sure.
That texted Lieutenant Kelly that all of our shots on all right?
Yes, sir, that's what
And you had 10 shots of liquor on your tab.
on my tab. I didn't.
And while drinking, you were yelling at the TV.
Yes, sir.
spilled and drink on something.
I did, yes, sir.
In your memory of the names and faces that night isn't that great, is that right?
It's not perfect, no, sir.
Now, after seeing their one of them smash you, we'll put them in their place real quick after being drinks, Commander Knight did in fact come up to you.
Who I now know to be Commander Knight, yes.
There's a chance you've seen them in uniform once or twice before August 13th, right?
Yes, sir, there is a possibility.
And that's why on August 13th, you said they looked familiar to you.
I didn't say that out loud, but
Commander Knight looked familiar to you on August 13th.
yes, sir.
Now, Commander Knight approached you, right?
Yes, sir.
They tapped you on the shoulder
Yes, sir.
and ordered you, okay, cowboy, time for bed, right?
Time to go to bed. I did not take that feed order at a time, but that is what you said.
And you didn't go to bed.
No, sir.
And at that point, Commander Knight got your attention again
I would say she already had my attention, but yes, sir.
and told you that it was, or you responded to Commander Knight saying to mind your business after her saying time for bed.
Yes, sir.
She responded saying it was her business and to go to bed now. Well,
Yes,
once again, did not go to bed.
no, sir.
And after hearing what your superior said, you wanted to punch her in the face.
Did not know she was my superior at the time, but yes, given out any prayer.
Let's say yes, you wanted to punch Commander Knight in the face after hearing what she said.
Yes, sir. One time.
Instead, you responded back to Commander Knight saying you like being the boss. How about you come put me in bed? We can have some real fun. Is that correct?
I did say that, yes, sir.
You're both hurt. Now, after stating this, Lieutenant Whitaker, an altercation occurred between you
Yes,
and Commander Knight ended up on the floor.
yes, sir. They do.
And after Commander Knight was knocked to the floor, your friend Lieutenant Kelly, she pulled you back, correct?
Yes, sir. He did.
And Lieutenant Kelly witnessed the altercation.
He was right next to us at the time.
And she pulled you back fairly quickly after Commander Knight was on the ground.
Yes, sir. That's fair to say.
She told you that you know you have to stand down.
That's something.
She also said that you should apologize.
Yes, sir.
And you went and apologized to Commander Knight, correct?
I did. Yes, sir.
You apologized saying, I'm sorry, ma'am. All right?
No, sir. Just a moment.
It's your testimony today that you didn't say, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Not specifically bad.
You're both no. Lieutenant Whitaker, after apologizing at that moment, you left the floor.
After apologizing and signing for a tab.
Officer Bartab didn't leave.
No, sir.
Thank you, no further questions. Thank you.
Lieutenant Whitaker, how did Commander Knight appear to you?
He appeared like an annoyed Panthers. He was wearing a Panthers polo, khaki shorts, flip flops when I first saw him.
Did Commander Knight at any point you were talking to her say her name?
No, sir, but I heard.
Did she say her right?
No, sir, however.
Did she identify herself at all?
No, sir.
Lieutenant Whitaker, how did this altercation escalate from a verbal one into a physical?
When Commander Knight took a swing.
No further questions.
No, you're fine. Three remarks, please.
At this time, the defense rests, Your Honor. For closing arguments, the government has 25 minutes and 2 seconds, and the defense has 17 minutes and 12 seconds.
Hey, counsel, I think we have plenty of time for closing arguments. Are we prepared to proceed? I'm happy to give, happy to take it to you. We would appreciate a few minutes. Okay. Time now is 16:09. We'll be back at 16:40.
Should be fantastic. Oh, that was. We're first policy.
Wash.
Guys, your family's hating the mic feedback on the comment section. You're just kind of wild. Gotta love technology. Never works when you need it.
Tuesday.
Well, who's doing the closing? You are? Okay, so you're good then. I'm supposed to have it made a lot easier, so it was just been here. Yeah, there's a guy who ordered the wrong one. What? So weird. It's not.
Okay, so.
Yeah, stick to it. So with the night. When did when did it? So the cameras, but because there's that slot, you put in the bank. You ordered it, but he's not gonna do
He's the deadline thing.
He's good at his job. Yeah. That's what I want to say. Yeah. Well, so he's like, tell he's been to too many rock concerts.
That's what I mean. Yeah, no, it's not.
Lay over. Yeah, no, I really hope he can do this.
Yeah.
All rise.
Please be seated.
Closing remarks. Yes, Your Honor, in a brief moment to inspect the will, we would also ask for Your Honor to provide an instruction to the members of the panel that the demonstrative of exhibit 2 will include the instructive action period. No instruction. Disorder, disobedience, and disrespect. That is how the accused decided to represent the United States Coast Guard on August 13th. Lieutenant Winter's actions go against everything that the Coast Guard stands for. And Commander Knight, a highly decorated officer, had to bear the brunt of that disorder, disobedience, and disrespect in front of fellow officers. The government of the United States can't stress enough how important the rules of the Coast Guard. They uphold that high standard that the members of this branch of the military hold themselves to. Some of the first things someone learns are the rules, how the chain of command works, and why they're so important. You have to be respectful of your superiors. There's just no other way to put it. Because when someone breaks those rules, they have to face up. Now, yes, this all happened at the Swamp Fox restaurant inside of the Francis Marion Hotel. But that does not mean that those rules and ranks don't apply. It does not mean that the accused gets a free pass. Because the Francis Marion Hotel was transformed into the staging ground. It was the command post, the place where every Coast Guard member assigned to the Hurricane Benny relief efforts stand. This wasn't just some hotel with a bunch of civilians walking around it. And this fight didn't happen at a sports bar down the street. The accused disorder, disobedience, and disrespect happened inside the command post, inside the Coast Guard's place of business. Now, as the government
we hold the burden of today's case. That burden is to prove each of the crimes beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a high bar. But beyond a reasonable doubt doesn't mean beyond all doubt. It doesn't mean that you have to be 100% sure that Lieutenant Whitaker is guilty. All it means is that the evidence has to leave you in a place where you have no reasonable doubt. You can be confident that Lieutenant Whitaker is guilty because of all the evidence you saw and heard today. Let's talk about it. You've heard that both sides stipulated to or agreed to the fact that Commander Knight was in fact the superior commissioned officer of Lieutenant Whitaker on August 13th. That's a fact. And you can be sure that Lieutenant Whitaker then knew that Commander Knight was his superior for 3 reasons. First, the accused got on the stand and said there's a chance that they've seen him in uniform once or twice in the lobby. And that's why on August 13th, Commander Knight looked familiar to him. Second, Lieutenant Kelly had texted the accused. You know all the higher-ups will be there with their microscopes on. Further, the accused knew that the Swamp Fox was the only place to eat in the hotel. That everyone goes to eat there every night. Listed guys and superior officers. How did the accused respond knowing that superior officers would be in the Swamp Fox that night? By saying, dare one of them to come at him, that he will put them in their place real quick after a few minutes. Now lastly, once again, the Francis Marion Hotel was transformed into the staging ground of the Coast Guard. And further, who else but a superior officer would come up to Lieutenant Whitaker in the command post and say it's their business to maintain discipline and order them not once, but twice to go to bed. You put all 3 of those reasons together and it'll lead you at one conclusion. That the accused then knew that Commander Knight was his superior. Now you also heard that the accused responded to Commander Knight saying, mind your business. You like being my boss? How about you come put me in bed? We could have some real fun. This complete and utter disrespect shocked Commander Knight. She told you how disrespected she felt. And just don't act like that in the Coast Guard. Not to a superior officer. Now, not only was there multiple instances of this disrespect, but the accused flat out assaulted Commander Knight. You heard that from 2 witnesses. First, unbiased third party, the bartender, who said that she saw the accused throw an arm out at the commander, knocking her to the floor. And Commander Knight got on the stand and told you the same thing. But for the accused to be guilty of this crime, Commander Knight had to then be in execution of her office. Yes, this happened at dinner in the Swamp Fox, but the Coast Guard's motto is Semper Paratus. Always ready. And Commander Knight's actions embodied that. That's why she knew, even though she wasn't in uniform, grabbing dinner, that she was still in the execution of her office because she was always on duty. That's why she went up to a drunk, rowdy, disorderly Lieutenant Whitaker, said it was her business to maintain discipline. Go to bed now. But you've all heard that Lieutenant Whitaker did not, in fact, go to bed, which leads right into the next charge: willfully disobeying superior commissioned officer. You heard that the commander gave 2 orders to go to bed. What did the accused do? They showed not one sign of obeying that order, but instead just stood there, responded disrespectfully, saying, mind your business, and chose to get into a physical altercation with their superior. Now, lastly, the government of the United States has brought a drunk and disorderly charge. I'm going to break the 2 up, beginning with drunk. Now, you've heard testimony from the bartender that the accused was in fact drinking. And you've seen the copy the accused bar had from that night. Now, yes, Lieutenant Kelly testified to drinking the Bud Light and the Fireball shots, but the accused said that it could have been more than a few drinks they had. If you take out the Bud Light, the Fireball, there is absolutely more than a few drinks left on this side. Furthermore, the accused was yelling at the TV, banging on the bar, knocking into people, spilled their drink. They were so drunk that when they stood up from the stool to face Commander Knight, they knocked that stool over. That's all evidence of impaired physical function. Not only that evidence of impaired physical functions, but their mental decision-making was impacted as well. You've heard that the accused made a promise to put a superior in their place after a few drinks. After they had those drinks, got a little bit of that liquid courage, they decided to fulfill that promise. Those drinks impacted their decision-making to the point where they would disrespect the superior officer in front of everyone and flat out assault her. Now also, the accused was acting disorderly, and again, you heard that the accused was yelling at the TV, banging on the bar, knocking into people, spilled their drink on someone. All evidence of disorderly conduct that caused the bartender to tell the accused to get their group and him to quiet down. Conduct that caused the bartender to stop serving him drinks. And conduct that caused the commander, who was sitting at a table 20 feet behind the bar, to get up from her seat and walk over to the accused. Say that you're embarrassing everyone, embarrassing the Coast Guard. And they had enough fun, it was time for them. Disorder, disobedience, and disrespect. You all know how the Coast Guard is, how things are supposed to be. You all signed on that same dotted line. You all gave the same oath. The reason why you're always ready is because of the rules and protocols that you follow every day with no days off. But you've heard that the accused took a day. Because of that, he has to face the consequences. What does a person who acts drunk and disorderly, disrespects and assaults a superior commissioned officer, and then willfully disobeys them in front of others? What does a person who acts like that do for the organization as a whole? Well, it causes it to begin to fall apart, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. When Commander Knight was ready to step up and meet that high standard, she was met with disorder, disobedience, and disrespect. In a moment, you will have the job of filling out this findings worksheet. This worksheet is where you will decide if you'll allow the accused disorder, disobedience, and disrespect to go unpunished in the Coast Guard. Now, there's 3 options on this form, but only one option accurately reflects everything you saw and heard today. That's option 2, guilty of all charges. Because the government of the United States met our verdict, leaving you with the only verdict that evidence supports and justice demands. Find the accused guilty.
Disorder, disobedience, disrespect. You've heard about those values. What you also heard is that Commander Knight acted disorderly when she drank right before an early morning shift. That Commander Knight, by drinking right before that shift, disobeyed the direct regulations of the Coast Guard that she admitted she is well aware of. And that Commander Knight disrespected her station as a superior officer in the Coast Guard. She tried to punch Lieutenant Whitaker in the face. As you know, on August 13th, Commander Knight went looking for a fight. The government took on a burden at the outset of this trial. Burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker disrespected, disobeyed, and assaulted a superior officer and engaged in drug and disorderly conduct. They did not meet that burden today for 3 reasons. First, Lieutenant Whitaker did not know Commander Knight as his superior officer. Second, Commander Knight abandoned her rank on August 13th. And third, Lieutenant Whitaker acted in self-defense, exactly like a normal and rational person. When the judge instructs you in the law, we expect that he will inform you of the concept of spillover. Spillover simply means that a single piece of evidence can be used to prove or disprove multiple charges, not just one. For example, if you believe that Lieutenant Whitaker did not know Commander Knight as his superior officer, then the government has failed to meet their burden on the disrespecting, disobeying, and assaulting a superior officer charges. Which brings me directly to my first point, that Lieutenant Whitaker did not know Commander Knight as a superior officer. Lieutenant Whitaker has affirmed that he did not know Commander Knight as a superior officer, putting forth ignorance. The government bears the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lieutenant Whitaker actually knew Commander Knight as a superior officer. Not that he should have known, not that he simply seemed familiar, but actually knew. Every witness that took this stand today was asked the same 3 questions, by my co-counsel and I. Did Commander Knight say her name? Did Commander Knight identify her rank? Did Commander Knight identify herself at all at the Swamp Box Bar on August 13th? Every single witness that took the stand answered the same one. Commander Knight did none of those. Just how you know Lieutenant Whitaker didn't know who Commander Knight was. And not only did Commander Knight not identify herself in any way, her clothing didn't identify herself in any way that night either. Because she told you she was wearing a Carolina Panthers polo in a South Carolina bar as a huge, self-professed Carolina. Lieutenant Whitaker is approached by a person wearing a Carolina Panthers polo in the bar that night, not a military uniform. Because that person was not wearing a military uniform, Lieutenant Whitaker did not know who they were that. Now, to get around these uncontroversial facts, the government provides you with a theory that because Commander Knight wore a flight suit in the lobby of the hotel, that Lieutenant Whitaker must have known who they were on August 13th. But remember what Lieutenant Whitaker told you on the stand today. That not just superior officers wear flight suits, but enlisted aircrew members, people from other agencies, not just superior officers. And let's take a little look at this flight suit that Commander Knight was wearing on today. Lieutenant Whitaker also told you that only one way can you see the rank of the person wearing a flight suit. This patch above the left shoulder. Then there's the pin. This patch is tight. It's hard to see right now. We can look at it as long as we want. The government expects you to believe that Lieutenant Whitaker spotted Commander Knight in the lobby when both of them told you they can't name a single time when that occurrence actually happened. Saw her from a distance, saw this incredibly hard to see insignia, and knew that the person approaching him at the bar that night, not wearing this uniform, was a superior officer. You know the government's theory holds no. Because Lieutenant Whitaker did not know Commander Knight was a superior officer on August 13th. Even though we know that Commander Knight didn't announce herself, we also know that Commander Knight didn't act according to her station. Bring me to my second. Commander Knight abandoned her rank on August 13th. When the judge instructs you on the law, we also expect that people inform you of the concept of abandonment of rank. When a superior commissioned officer, whose own language or conduct departs substantially from the required standards of that officer, is considered to have abandoned their rank and position, which is exactly what Commander Knight did on August 13th. Because she took this, and she told you that she's well aware of the Coast Guard regulation that strictly limits aviators to consume alcohol before a shift. She told you herself she was sent 5 shots of whiskey over the course of the week, and that the reason she didn't order drinks herself because she knows that any drink would violate that regulation. She told you on the stand that she did have drinks that night. At least 2 or 3 drinks that night. 2 or 3 drinks meant Commander Knight believed that she was violating the Coast Guard standard because you know the reason she didn't order any is because she knows about that. Members of the panel, violating a standard of the Coast Guard is abandoning your rank. And Commander Knight's abandonment of rank extends even beyond her drinking that night. You know that Commander Knight targeted Lieutenant Whitaker for personal reasons. You heard all about Commander Knight's Panthers fan, how Commander Knight was watching the game on August 13th, and how watching her favorite team, the Panthers, lose that game made her mad. And while she was mad, she looked across the bar and she saw a Cowboys fan, Lieutenant Whitaker, flirting with someone she knew. Someone named Blake Towers. Members of the panel, you heard all about Blake Towers. You watched Commander Knight on this stand tell you that everything about their relationship was strictly professional. But you also watched on the stand as she denied ever seeing Lieutenant Whitaker and Towers flirting or getting cozy. But you heard Chris Starr, the bartender, describe those two behavior as exactly that they were hugging, that they were getting close, they were getting cozy, that they were flirting. Commander Knight could not admit to you that the reason she approached Lieutenant Whitaker that night was not maintaining the standards of the Coast Guard, but was jealous. Jealous that Lieutenant Whitaker was spending a late night in the hotel with Blake Towers, like she had so many nights before. Because you know that Lieutenant Whitaker was targeted by Commander Knight for personal reasons, Commander Knight abandoned her rank on August 13th. You know that Lieutenant Whitaker did not know who Commander Knight was. You know Commander Knight abandoned her rank on August 13th. Lieutenant Whitaker did not have to put on a case, but he elected to do so. And because he elected to do so, we were able to show you my third. Lieutenant Whitaker acted in self-defense, exactly like a normal and rational person. There are 2 elements of Lieutenant Whitaker's self-defense. First, that he reasonably anticipated force being used against him. And second, that the only force that he used was defensive. Every witness that took this stand today told you the same thing. That Commander Knight moved towards Lieutenant Whitaker first. Lieutenant Whitaker told you Commander Knight took a swing at him and would have hit him in the face if he didn't try to block. Lieutenant Kelly, who was 4 feet away from Lieutenant Whitaker at the time, echoed, told you that Commander Knight swung, tried to punch Lieutenant Whitaker. Chris Starr, the bartender, told you that she saw Lieutenant Commander Knight move towards Lieutenant Whitaker first, after seeing the look on Commander Knight's face, the look that told her that Commander Knight was ready for a fight. Even Commander Knight agrees that he moved first. She moved first. The only discrepancy is that she tells you she was just reaching for the beer and Lieutenant Whitaker's. Members of the panel, I want you to take Commander Knight at her word just this moment and to say that she actually was reaching for that beer. When my co-counsel asked her on the stand whether she warned Lieutenant Whitaker when she was reaching to grab the beer, she only told you why she was grabbing it. She never once admitted to you that she never said anything when she was reaching for the beer. Because she knows that if she admits that she reached for Lieutenant Whitaker's body with her hand without notice, that Lieutenant Whitaker reasonably anticipated that that was aggressive force. Lieutenant Whitaker would respond to aggressive force with self-defense, which is exactly what Lieutenant Whitaker did on August 13th. Because just like every witness that took this stand told you Commander Knight moved first, every witness that took this stand described the action the same way. Lieutenant Kelly and Lieutenant Whitaker both tell you that Lieutenant Whitaker just raised an arm to block. Commander Knight tried to tell you that Lieutenant Whitaker punched her, but she couldn't tell you that she gave her fist. Couldn't even tell you what part of Lieutenant Whitaker's body made contact with her. And where it made contact? You know that was the very same arm that she had just reached toward Lieutenant Whitaker without warning. Because her excuse does not differentiate this assault, the flat-out assault the government wants you to believe, from self-defense. Lieutenant Whitaker's own act, self-defense. Lieutenant Whitaker's normal and rational behavior extends far beyond just his use of self-defense. Because to prove their last claim of drunken disorderly conduct, the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lieutenant Whitaker was so intoxicated he could no longer act like a normal and rational person. Let's talk about Lieutenant Whitaker's room. Lieutenant Whitaker told you that he had a few beers, and no witness that took the stand could contradict him. The bartender told you verbatim that she didn't see what Lieutenant Whitaker was drinking. Lieutenant Kelly, drinking on her own, didn't see what Lieutenant Whitaker was drinking. Commander Knight did not see a single drink that Lieutenant Whitaker consumed. The only drink that he saw was the one that he spilled. The only drink that she saw was the one he spilled on Blake Towers. Because you know that Lieutenant Whitaker only had a few beers, didn't have any of the shots, because that's what he told you on the stand. Beyond that, members of the panel, you heard the bartender take this and tell you that before Commander Knight took a swing at Lieutenant Whitaker, Lieutenant Whitaker's behavior was nothing out of the normal from how everyone else was behaving at the bar. Nothing out of normal. In other words, acting normal and rational. Members of the panel, you've seen the evidence, you've heard the testimony, and now the decision rests with you. We ask that you uphold commanders of the Coast Guard to their required standards and station, which is how you know when you go to fill out this findings worksheet that you should circle option 1 and find Lieutenant Junior Grade Whitney Whitaker not guilty.
Mr. Stokes, the rebuttal. Yes, no. The defense has just come before you and tried to shift the blame. But you must remember that Commander Knight is not on trial tonight. The accused is. Despite the defense focusing on Commander Knight's consumption of alcohol, you know that everyone was watching a football. And the defense asserted no evidence of when these shots, how that fits in with that regulation that they harped on so much. And you did hear that Lieutenant Whitaker was drinking. For an hour and a half, Commander Knight watched the behavior. Again, yelling at the TV, banging on the bar, knocking into people, spilled a drink on someone, knocked the bar stool over. All evidence of being wrong. The defense has asserted this claim of defense of self-defense and ignorance. But you heard that the accused knew that higher ups would be at the bar. You heard the accused make a promise that they would dare one of them to come at him, and he would put them in their place real quick after a few drinks. So when Commander Knight approached, the accused had their opportunity to put a superior in their place. He knew who Commander Knight was. And that's why, even at the slightest movement to reach for a beer after calmly walking up, saying it was time for bed, the accused pounced on that opportunity to fulfill that promise and threw an arm out, knocking Commander Knight to the floor. You heard even before that, after hearing what Commander Knight said, that he wanted to punch her in the face. That doesn't sound like the thoughts of someone who was scared for their safety. Now, you've heard all this evidence, and the government has met their burden, which is why you should go with option 2, full conviction. Guilty.
Hey, counsel, I don't dare to presume how long it takes to deliberate, plus one of the members of the false. What we'll do is members will excuse themselves, counsel, and everybody can stay in place. Once we're ready to, render the verdict or stay in place. Yeah, look and stand. Is it? Yeah. Or from the picture. The outside. It's, yeah. Yeah. What's it? It's okay. Please be seated. Now I got All right, folks, I know it's been a long day and not too long weekend, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say a bunch of thank yous. I'm gonna try to get through these as quickly as possible, understanding how long we've been, how what a wonderful week it is. So, you can try to race out there as safe as possible. Better. First off, I want to thank the members here. So, Adam Dwyer, Lieutenant Commander Taylor, Mr. Ulmer. And then in the back row, in case you're curious, my daughter, is my biggest juror in this evaluation. That Professor Chapman. So thank you, thanks to all of you for your attendance throughout this. It goes without saying, you know, the last 2 keys here, but if you don't know, there were 8. I'm not going to list all of the law schools yet. Schools from Alabama, North Carolina, New York, Texas, Washington, D.C., Florida, Nevada, and South Carolina. Absolutely incredible. This is the first ever mock court martial in Charleston School of Law. Owns that, right to brag. This is really an exceptional moment. I think personally, okay, I've got 23 years to start time to see this come to fruition and perhaps spur some folks, litigators, whether they're judge advocates or whether they go out and do their profession, however they choose, to be effective in the courtroom. This provides you with that. So I'm incredibly appreciative of the attentiveness and the seriousness that the counsel that I saw today and then that the whole team throughout the weekend. Incredibly impressive across the board. I would say, you know, your preparation was exceptional. Did anybody see any notes in their hands throughout this thing? I mean, they knew their backpack was full. They knew what they wanted to say. They were focused. And that is a very, very hard thing to do unless you have mastery of the facts and you know exactly where you're going. And these 2 teams were incredibly effective in doing that. Your theme was terrific, okay? So you get 3 Ds, you get alliteration, aside kind of deal. That catches people, and I know you taught that in all the books, but that was incredibly effective and an appropriate theme for this case. Equally, you know, what's you know, it's just as hard to kind of knock down the box as it is to build them up. You took their theme and then you flipped it on its head. So incredible work by both sides. Nuanced critiques, you know, I'm a junkie for this, folks. Okay, so I can talk for hours and I don't. I would say on the government side, not right, but that's really the crux of how you're going to get a guilty verdict here. So I think we did a really terrific job in the summation to develop that. I think hitting that one maybe a little bit more during the witness testimony probably might have garnered you know, for some of the specifications. And then just, you know, look, this person, it has a ton to lose, okay? They're going to say what they have to say. Those members need to hear that this guy can lose his commission, and he was trying to go to flight school, right? So, like, you better believe, like, I remember, I don't remember, I had drinks, don't have drinks, like, hammering home, like, hey, this is worthless defense at the end of the day, because this is the person that's charged and is guilty as deal. So just think about that as you think about the problem of your case, your theme of the case, and what you want to hit home. The salute business. I almost felt like you kind of introduced something that really didn't bring on. And that's cool if you want to inflect more like noise to it, right? Like, you know, so you know, classic defense, it's like I'm going to boil a ton of spaghetti and throw it against the wall and see which you will stick, right? So the salute thing, you know, maybe it was a tactical decision to introduce, but I would say, like, if they don't bring it up, like, hey, like, thank you very much, you know, move on. So
just those are minor critiques. But I again, your average wire runs shop here, we offer the Coast Guard, 20+ criminal prosecutors, and I don't joke around. I don't joke around a lot. I think that's probably false. And some folks in the back will say that. But I genuinely say, you get a uniform, figure out the customs and first, you're pretty close to good to go in terms of coming back to judge advocate in any financial service, but hopefully in the rest of us.
Thank you.
I definitely want to thank all those law students. Maybe you got some credit today, maybe you didn't. I don't really care. Like, it's just really cool that you're here. And there's so many other things that you could have been doing on a Sunday afternoon, and you're sitting here. And that is incredibly meaningful. Like, they don't get better without people behind them kind of breathing on their necks. And they know that, right? Like, nouns and verbs really, really matter. And if they misstep, that they could lose the case for those types of things. And so your presence here makes this more real, it makes it more effective, and it makes it more meaningful. The last 3 days, I just got some numbers from Professor Chapman. So the law school ran 19 trials between those eight different law schools with 32 different student advocates and 31 judge advocate officers from 3 different branches. So that is an exceptional feat. Commander Lance and Commander Taylor with Professor Chapman are kind of the maestros of this thing. So if you see them at some point, please thank them. But they've been running shy and judge advocate. So I got one guy from the Army and 2 from the Marine Corps, and I did that intentionally to say, you know what uniform not to wear. Okay? In all seriousness, that's just great exposure for all of you to see. Hey, we all bleed and we all get to a certain point in our careers from hard work and commitment and passion. And so hopefully you had the opportunity to talk to them about what a career looks like in the service. And maybe that's for you, and maybe it's absolutely not for you, right? Those are your personal decisions. But if you still have lingering questions, Lieutenant Nedley is in the back. And she's waiting below. And so go find her. And if you don't find her today, you got to get out of here and go do something else. She's also available as a quick Uber, right? The worst thing that you can do is become more informed about where you don't want to go with your careers, okay? So you pick up the phone and have a phone call. It's great. All right, so that's it on that. There's a couple other things here. I mentioned Admiral Dwyer, Taylor, Professor Chapman. These are the folks that are enrolled. Couldn't have happened without them. Also available over here. We had a great time. I mean, you went down to the seconds. I was like, I don't. But I was told that you're very good at your job, and you definitely didn't. Definitely exceeded expectations. So in the military, you check the 7 on one side. One's for the bad, 7's for the good. All 7s and really. Okay, last but not least, I think we have some boards to hang on and announcements. Who came from the team in 7. Again, before I announced that, hey, I know this is got you're gonna hold your head high whoever since 7. Okay, because I am floored by the numbers. I see not just the advisor. Year or 2 out, and you were misspending. Thank the advisors who spend the time with their teams to actually get them as prepared as possible for this year. And how do you know what it's going to achieve the grade is? Cares about in order, So there's just a lot of things about the military customs and services that are very hard, and you're not effective without their advisors. If you didn't hear Admiral Dwyer last night, we handed out some challenge points to folks. Go ahead and Google what a challenge point means in the military. There are ways to recognize people for excellence. And I have to tell you, every single point that I have in my entire career, I never gave that to me. And I'm so appreciative for them thinking of me in a certain way that I was able to help them or help the service.
And so the points are incredibly meaningful to us. It is a custom within our service, like the other services. And so we are going to give out a point for the best advocate in the final round. And we're going to get that from the 30-plus year admiral in the United States Coast Guard person. So without further ado, Mr. Jack Little, go ahead and get a point from. Now for the last two numbers. So the second place finalist for the 2025 Charleston Court Martial Challenge goes to Team H from Howard University. Congratulations. Some brag, I'll tell you, we were talking about horses. I was watching these guys count up. It was so close. But without further ado, the winner of the first inaugural Charleston Court Martial Challenge is Team Charleston University. Congratulations. We have one more tradition. I guarantee you that has absolutely nothing to do with the Coast Guard, but I want to picture with all the contestants, if you will, with the members of it.